Welcome to Wednesday Night Live with me. I'm your host, S.Rogers. I want to go over the keynote, but I'm going to screen share first. So give me just a second. I don't think we have anybody that's never been here before, right? Everybody's been here before.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Go ahead and mute yourselves. And then that's your little microphone. I want a red line through it. And then if you need to interrupt me, you can just unmute yourself and speak freely. Hey, Tanya. So we've been making this whole thing about course maps. And I started out wanting to sell everybody on the course map. And I still believe strongly that you can't navigate the agility world without using a course map. Lots of people have lots of reasons why they want to, but not, and the reasons are all valid. So if you have friends that say, yeah, you know, I don't like it for this reason or that reason, the reasons are all valid. I think I've heard them all, but you know, it's scary to say that with our group. So convince your friends they need to use the course maps. I'm no longer calling Wednesday Night Live all about course maps. I'm calling it course dissection because I'm talking way more about the walkthrough, handling strategies, lines, lanes, turn cues. So it's really more course dissection using a course map. And now we've added some video in. So that's small. So there's three phases, in my opinion, of making a plan. And by a plan, I mean the plan that you are making for yourself to navigate the course with your dog. So phase one, in my mind's eye, is all about geometry. And this is what I'm about to say is going to be difficult to completely wrap your head around. And I know this because I work with the same folks, not every week, but over a period of time. And I can see how they're like, yeah. But as they're walking it, the difficulty that they have with the geometry tells me that they can't get to the geometry fully enough to get full use of the facts of the geometry of the course because they are clouding their brains with their dog skills, and their skills. They're looking at it as one, like this, like here is the course that I need to execute in a certain way with my dog. And I'm really asking you all to get comfortable with embracing, like if the course map was a blueprint and you were just using a pencil to make a line, and you were going to make the line intersect the things in as many different ways as you could, but in order. And it was just to see what the shape was with the pencil. It has nothing to do with dogs and people. So that's what I'm talking about when I say learn the path and the flow of the course as a course, and that it's not about you or the dog at all the first go round. And I call basic geometry when you're taking an obstacle and the next obstacle is on the other side of it. That's just basic. And you can change, if it's a jump, how your dog, you can influence the path through handling. So that the dog takes the jump in a certain angle that makes the dog land in the path for the next obstacle. So that's your basic geometry. That's when you are thinking about if my dog would take the jump, like if the dog went from, it's still basic geometry, you guys. The dog goes from obstacle 4 to obstacle 6. and he's taking 5 in a certain way to do that. That's what I mean. Advanced geometry involves the stanchion of the jump as well as the refusal line. If you don't know what the refusal line is, hang out after and I'll tell you what it is. It's basically the bar extending imaginarily forever. It's the line that cuts the takeoff side. It's the line that shows the takeoff side from the landing side. So advanced geometry involves, we're going to go around one wing, take the bar and then the refusal line, or the other wing, take the bar and then the refusal line. We're going to do a wrap. Could also mean we're going to take a backside. We're going to take the refusal line and then the bar from either the left or the right. And that's when you start really, and sometimes you've got 2 of those in a row or 3 of those in a row. And then you're involving 5 to 8 obstacles to figure out which way to go. Okay. Decisions is phase 2. So I haven't made any decisions when I'm doing that geometry about what side of my body the dog and the obstacle are going to be on, about the skills in relationship to my obstacle skills, if I have to be close to the teeter, or if my dog will jump off the A-frame if I'm not in front of it, or my directional cues. Do I have to be in a certain position, or are they verbal? My turn cues, do they work on every obstacle? Do they work in every proximity? When do they work? When do they don't? And then the lanes, am I going to parallel, converge, or peel away? So all of those decisions, those are the handling decisions that are all part of this master plans, but that's phase 2. So I don't go into that while I'm trying to figure out the geometry, because it will trick me. It'll trick me into believing something about the geometry that is not true. And then phase 3 is the precision walkthrough. That's the dress rehearsal. And my goal is to have 5 full minutes. And I'll tell you what, I've been showing again lately, and I was laughing because I only made the 5 full minutes on 2 courses in the last 4 days that I've showed. But I'm watching. So we had some tricky stuff and I left the ring going, I was in decision phase for the whole 8 minutes. And that's just not my favorite. So you guys, it's not, this shouldn't be happening. It's, I'm going to work real hard with my course map to decrease the number of decisions that have to be made during the walkthrough. Okay. You have to get up early or look at the course maps the night before now with the new apps. But, it needs to be planned in. It's all about the plan. So then I want you to have 2 questions after your run. Did you create a good plan or a satisfactory plan? Or were you happy with the plan? What are your you guys don't talk to yourselves in the terms of, I had a crappy plan. It's not useful enough. Talk to yourselves in terms of, I was torn between the front and the rear, and in retrospect, I would have been better with the rear. Or I planned to be halfway to the next jump before the teeter board hit the ground, and I wasn't. I couldn't get there. So now then you can have fun wondering, okay, was that because I had a good or a bad plan that I couldn't get there? Or was it the second half of this slide? Did you execute the plan so all I'm saying is, did you execute the plan as you planned? Was, if you didn't like a certain part, I don't even want to say if you liked it or not. Did it work? Was it successful? How do we know that? You guys, it's not about, I hear this so much about that felt really good. And I can have some things that don't feel so good, but Tuxedo knew where he was going and it worked. So I like it when my students feel good, and I sure like to feel good, but I'm trying not to take my feelings into consideration when I'm assessing my run after the fact, when I'm trying to really decide how good my plan was and then splitting that into, if there were parts where you guys, it all kind of boils down to, did the dog know what he was doing? Did he know in advance where he was going next? And then the next piece is, was he trained well enough to perform? And that's like obstacle training. Did you give a turn cue that he was well enough trained on to execute on a wingless on the corner with a tunnel track? So that may have meant, and that's where the planning comes in. So if you can operate in facts as much as possible before, during, and after an agility run, the information you will gather, the less emotional information that you gather, will serve you much better than just how you felt about it. So those are the two questions. Was it a good plan? And was it executed? When people come up and say, I had a crappy run, and I said, what was crappy, the plan or the execution? And a lot of times my students have to, really think about that question. And I have to think about it too, especially if I was on the fence about the decisions. Questions about that? Going once? Going twice? Okay. I've got two things on my agenda. And one, I'm going to open a little bit of a can of worms here, I think. And I don't know. Yeah, I think I'll use the course map that we're going to use to talk about this. I can. All right. You guys, I want to talk about lead outs. I mentioned that last week, and I want to talk about the difference between the lead out pivot and the lead out push. And I had decided that when I did this, that it would be a big deal, that I would probably sell tickets and get lots of footage. And I think that dream I'm living of a lead out push, lead out pivot, real deal will happen someday. But it's on my mind so much lately that I want to just talk about a little bit. And I have a video that really surprised me. I think those of you that know me or even have come to these a few times know that I kind of pride myself on Tuxedo knowing where he's going next. There's generally not a lot of screaming. I mean, I may raise my voice to get the emphasis on a turn, but I'm usually not screaming, calling him off course. Now I'm thinking about that. Sometimes I am, for sure. So in the olden days, when we did lots of crappy lead out pivots, our dogs would actually fall. They would actually wipe out because the timing was so late. And a lead out pivot always has a lead change. So the dog, and sometimes the handler is standing in a way where the dog can't predict what's going to happen. And we used to face in a way that gave the dog less information. And we've learned a lot. So a couple of weeks ago, when Tuxedo fell over, just completely fell down on a lead out pivot, I was pretty sure he had slipped on the grass. The grass was, because heaven forbid it be my fault. And the grass was dry. And I was so fortunate to have it videotaped because I could see what I did. I could see exactly where he messed up. And the first thing I thought when I saw that last week is I have to share this with my Wednesday night people, because what happens at trials, and I don't really know the full answer around this, other than I recommend that you all have mentors and that you know who to talk to when you're at trials. Because the folks that like to give the most advice, this isn't 100%, this is my own personal casual observation, are often people who that have been in the sport long enough that they can make an initial assessment, but they don't follow all of the reasons down far enough to know why something works. So what happens is at the trials is we hear a lot of that didn't work, or that did work, or see, that dog had that trouble because that handler did that. Yeah, the dog had trouble because the handler did something. But you guys, until you are analyzing video, we are talking me, who is pretty self-aware when I'm handling, who does pretty good at making plans and has a pretty well, I'm pretty proud of my training on my dog. And it took the video for me to see exactly what I did. And I can explain, I did a seminar once where it was a kind of a mental seminar about agility handling. And she said, a lot of times when you say, why did that happen? You can say, because the dog's a dog and you're only human. So without further ado, I'm going to screen share and I'm going to do a little bit of drawing because unfortunately I don't have the darn course map, but it doesn't matter. It's a classic thing. I have the video, but I don't have the course map. So tell me when you can see my fingers wiggling.
Not yet.
Okay, that was a bad sign. I'm glad that you couldn't, because I've been gardening and that means that my fingernails are dirty.
Yeah, we won't show ours.
Okie dokie. Now let's invite Elmo back in. Thanks for hanging in there with me, everybody. And I'm going to ask you if you can see he's slow. Can you see my pen wiggling?
Yeah.
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry about the sun. There's nothing that I can do about that. So here was one course that we had. There's the tunnel. And this is classic box configuration. And this jump, just pretend this jump is back a little bit more. So a lead out pivot is just basically a front cross. So if this jump was number 9 on the course and this was number 10, a classic way, if the dog was coming from over here, would be for the handler to run up here, the handler is here and the dog is here, and do a side change, a front cross to go off here to where the rest of the course is going. The course is going to go up here. Okay. And then another way, if depending on where your dog was taking this jump from, would be to, if you're coming from over here, you would do what we would call serp this jump. And positional cues are something that I use a lot, and all that everybody does. There's nobody that does agility that isn't in a certain place at a certain time that the dog understands. So some people talk more about positional cues in that language than others, but where we're at on course is relevant to the dog. So if the handler was running here and the handler may choose to get ahead and do what we call a serp, where a serpentine always means that the handler is running across the front of a jump and the dog is taking the jump in the direction that the black pen is going, and the handler is telling the dog to go to this jump by being across the 50% line of this jump. Hold on, hold that thought. Don't get excited. I'm going to come back to this. And you're going to see a serpentine and serpentine handling in the video that I'm going to do. So here's a classic serpentine. The dog goes out over one jump, comes in over the other jump. So you might handle this from up here. You might, the dog may be over here, and this would mean that you're serping the jump, that you've run past this number 2 jump. 1, 2, 3. So you're past the jump, at least halfway past. And there's different people put up different hands and cue this differently. And it's just a position to be in. But you're on this side. That's the handler. And then the dog could be anywhere here. The dog could be, you want to get ahead. Most of you know that, but bear with me because there's some people that don't. And those of you that don't worry. So we could say that the dog was coming from another jump over here. The dog is coming over this jump this way, in this jump this way, and over that jump. And the handler is going to run over here. But that you guys not doing a very good job of explaining what I want. I'm going to get there. I absolutely promise you. If the handler, in my opinion, is on this side of the world, they're telling the dog that the next obstacle is on this side of the world. Simple, right? If the handler is on this side of the world, that the handler is telling the dog that the next obstacles are on this side of the world. So if I was doing a lead out and I was going to this jump, I would be on this side. And if I was handling the course, as I said before, this obstacle is 9, 10, and 11, I would be on this side. And if I wanted the dog to go to this jump, whether or not I was leading out to here to do my front cross, or whether or not I was running in the middle of the course, whether this configuration was at the beginning or the middle, I would be on the side of the space that the next on-course obstacle was on and choose a front cross. That's because I'm going to lead out, the dog is on my left, and I'm going to pivot in place and put the dog on my right. I'm going to run this way, dog is going to run this way, and I've done a side change. Same thing here, dog is on my right. The dog is going to come to me. My right hand is up, and I'm going to do a front cross. And now the dog is on my left. So that's a lead out pivot. It's also a front cross in the middle of the course. That's what I'm trying to say. A lead out push is more like you're serping this jump. So the handler would choose to lead out on this side when the dog is going over here. And as the dog was approaching the jump, they would show the dog, hey, I'm crossing this lane and I'm going to be over here. And you guys, that is a move that we could also make if it was the middle of the course. The reason that I don't choose to do that is because I'm stood still. If I'm stood still, I want my dog to be able to tell with simple logic where I'm going next. There are many people that can show the dog that they're going to this jump at the right time that the dog is approaching this jump, so that the lead out push works just fine. So the lead out push is the handler has let out to here, and at the right time, they start moving towards this jump as they would have if this was the middle of the course and they were coming from over here and they were serping this jump. serping is a maneuver, and it's also a configuration. So if you're new, that can be confusing, and you will learn what serpentines are, how to recognize them, and you will learn serp maneuver, which is what I just explained. So I serp all the time, and I do front crosses all the time, but I don't choose to do lead out pushes because the dog will think, I want my dog to think that I'm always going to stand near the thing that I'm going to, so that my dog has more freedom of choice on where we're going. Now, that said, especially with this big fat tunnel right here, you could stand anywhere in this box and your position would not completely take the tunnel out of play. And that's because if you stood here, you could say my dog should know it's that jump. But what if you started moving that way? Then you'd be cueing the tunnel. So your dog could be on the start line going, oh, I hope she moves. I hope she moves. I'll bet it's a tunnel. I bet she's going to move. I bet she's going to move. So the time that you choose to move, the direction that you choose to move, dictate the success on the dog knowing which obstacle it is. Same for the lead out push, except on the lead out push, the dog doesn't get the early information that you're going that way. The difference between the lead out push and the lead out pivot is that the lead out pivot starts closer to the on-course obstacle than the lead out push. And I personally think that is an enormous advantage. The reason that lead out pushes work is because they are something that you would use in the middle of the course, a serpentine maneuver, and done well, they work well. But if you are in a camp that argues whether lead out pushes and lead out pivots are better or worse, what you really need to know is all of the key elements that make one work well and the other work well, and what makes one not work well and what makes the other one not work well. So I'm going to show you a little video where I am in the right position to do a lead out pivot and I screw it up very, very subtly. And then this can be something where some of you are saying, oh my God, I've known all this for years. Why is she spending so much time of it? Others may be saying, I'm completely lost. And some of you, I hope maybe just one or two are saying, this is really clarifying. This is a common, in my mind's eye, a big deal. So let me put Elmo to bed. And you guys can email me. I didn't get through the whole, okay. I didn't get through the whole slideshow. That's thank you for coming. How to get on my email list and then tell a friend. Okay, I can get rid of that now. That was a split, shift on the slideshow. Okie doke. So here we are. And I am going to slow-mo it down. Does everybody see video now?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. And I had to slow-mo it down significantly. And I'll be able to show you on the video where other folks led out. So he fell. So I'll slow-mo it and then I'll tell you what I did. And you guys may have already see what's gone terribly wrong.
Right there.
It's before. And you know, the fall was way, way worse. And and I'm very, very, very proud to say that the number of times that this has happened with us, I can count on one hand in his entire career. And, but in the olden days, we used to, and I'm just going to flat out say, do this to our poor dogs. And you guys, when you see dogs fall, and there were comments made, because, you know, when you have video, you get to hear what's said around you about, you know, the people that were on the fence about the lead out pivot and the lead out push. Can you guys see my cursor? Yes or no?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I see it.
Okay. You're so cute. Let me go back a second and see if I can get that other jump in there. Okay, so class, there's another jump right behind this bar setter's head. And if you cut this jump right here in half, I wanted to be on this side. So the course went this tire, this blue jump, and this blue jump. And the reason that I didn't lead out right on this blue jump, like that would be my first choice handling. The reason I'm in the middle, and it looks like I'm way closer to this jump, and that's an angle issue, is because of what I had to do over here. I had to do something over here, and we might see it. And I wanted to be in a certain lane more easily. And my position there was fine. And the people that did the lead out push, if you cut this jump in half, they let out over here and they started running towards this jump before the dog got to the tire, or if they were on time, or if they were late, then, and I don't like to T-bone lines. Do I T-bone a line on a SERP? I'm far enough ahead that the dog doesn't read it as a T-bone, but it is technically the same as a lead out push. I know I've said that over and over and over since we started. So here's what happened. You guys that work with me know that my rules on a front cross are when the onside foot is forward, there's no more motion. It's wrong to have motion in the old direction. That when you're doing a front cross, the onside foot is planted, which is in this case, my right foot. And my next step should be toward my on-course obstacle. So the next thing that should happen is my right foot should go toward number 3. I think you guys can see that this number here is number 2. Watch what so Tux says, her position says that she's gonna go behind her. That's my classic position. But I upset the apple cart because I start moving right there. You guys, he's trained to know that every step matters. That's why, I mean, I use my feet like dollar bills. They're real estate. So as soon as I started, and I'm leaning a little bit forward too, he's already left the ground. He made the decision. So this is just one of those things that went bad.
He thought it was the yellow jump that was straight ahead, right? Okay.
Or he thought, yes, most likely. Okay. And I'm pretty sure there's a jump over here behind this bar setter's head, and right this second, I can't remember. And like I said, I don't have the course map, but I could, and that's what I said when I showed you the box. I could be on the far side of a box if I'm going to cue the dog to go straight, if I don't want to be on the lane closest to the dog. And lots of times I'm not traveling in the lane that's closest to the dog. So the dog can't rely on the fact that if I'm in the center of the box, I'm always going to go straight. That's my first choice handling. And I can assure you with this angle, it looks like I'm closer to the center of the box than I actually am. You can tell by the yellow jump that I'm not. And I had decided to be off that number 3 jump so that I could do something a little bit clever with the next lane I had coming up on 5 and 6. If I had been closer to 3, it wouldn't have mattered. But the way I put myself, so he saw that little bit of, so he did not collect up, you know, and now he's just trying to figure it all out. My onside foot still doesn't have the line set. So it was a combination of being late and taking that one single step in the wrong direction. And it's a step I know better. I know better than to do that. And if you had told me I did it, I would have argued with you. I would have said I would
It's
never.
amazing he's so sensitive though to that. That's just crazy.
Well, it's because he has to decide right now what to do with his body over that jump. He has to know if he should collect up for a tight turn. So if it's not clear, he's got to gas. He starts to turn there. And then this step, because I missed, because he started to think I was going to go straighter to the right. Now I'm blocking him. And he actually does touch my leg there. Right there, he's touching me. Oh, so that wasn't a classic box. But you can see that I needed to stay on that side and not run in as deep because the A-frame was next, and I wanted to do a front cross before the teeter. So I took that liberty with that. Anyways, I took that liberty with not being right as close to my lead out pivot jump as I normally would, to have the advantage with the lane. And then I took that one step forward. So whoever said it's amazing that they're that sensitive, it's a nice observation to have, because anytime our dogs make mistakes, I would really encourage you to be humble about how you might have fooled them with a single step. Any questions about that?
I have a question. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead first. Yeah.
It seems like your weight would have been on your right foot, with your right foot forward, or was your weight on your left foot?
My weight should be fully on my right foot. And then I push off when I do a proper front cross. So the weight is fully, not yet. See, and that's another thing, is that wandering forward.
I mean, would you have had to have swung your right leg around and at the same time put your weight on your left leg to get into the position you thought you were going to take?
My weight would have been fully on my right toe. And as I shift my weight to my right foot, my weight would have been fully on my right foot. And as I push back on my right foot, the weight completely transfers to my left leg, and then my right foot goes backwards. And these footwork things are both in BAM and feet first.
Yeah. Okay.
I think
get it.
The other thing that really fooled him, and this is another thing, you guys, that is just between me and my dog, is when I leave my dog on the start line, and this is a joke a little bit, but it's what I say all the time. I know the blade of grass that I'm moving out to. I march like I know what I'm doing, even if I don't, even if I'm feeling insecure about any part of the course. I let him know, I've got you, buddy. I am going to handle cleanly. And it looks to me like I even repositioned myself as I let out. You guys, there's so many contributing factors to this type of thing. Like if you're first up, or, you know, you're in the bathroom, and see here, I'm traveling in. See that? So that repositioning, oh, it's so bad. It's so bad. I feel I can't watch it anymore.
I have to say, Sandy, I'm going to interject. I really appreciate that you show us like the high points where things went well, and even at your level, I'm sure this doesn't happen very often, but the mistakes you make, and that really helps us all. And I appreciate that.
Well, thank you so much, because, you know, I talk a lot, and all I want anybody that is learning from me to understand is that what I preach, the reason I'm showing this to you is because I say every step matters. And I get upset at shows sometimes when people show disappointment in their dogs and they don't even know what the hell they did. So whenever because of the level of understanding that I have, I want to share that so that you guys will be humble and have a lot of sympathy and we're asking them to go as fast as they can and read this information. I don't know if you've ever had a bad navigator in the car with you. You're not going to speed up. When somebody's giving you crappy directions, you're going to slow down. So thanks for saying that. And
I
all
have a
of my
question.
rely on all my videos have teaching with me screwing up. Yep.
I'm thinking about my dog, and I don't know if I would have done a lead out pivot there because I'm not as sophisticated as you are.
Mm-hmm.
I would have started her on my right like that, gone out to where the stanchion is, and then cued her to go. And then I would have done my front cross between 2 and 3 and then gone 2 and 3 and then gone to the next jump, or done a rear cross.
Well, so a lead out pivot is done in the same place as the front cross was. So if you were going to not lead out as far as I did, then you would have been running with the dog. So you could have let out between 1 and 2. But if you, so it doesn't, that's why I said when I did that drawing, if the beginning of the course was, so pretend that the tire is number 10 and number 2 is number 11 and number 3 is number 12. That front cross would go on the same diagonal line between those two jumps as the lead out pivot. So
Right.
if you've ever done a front cross in your life, then you can do a lead out pivot, unless your dog doesn't understand to take jumps, unless he can see you through the jumps. And that's a lateral lead out. And that is,
I've only done a lead out pivot when I'm standing by a stanchion, not in the middle of, I don't think I've done it in the middle of a jump like that. I need to do that.
well, yeah, just think about that a lead out pivot would go in, the front cross goes where the front cross goes. And your
Right.
front cross can go anywhere on the diagonal line and be quote unquote. But you do have to teach the dog to take the jumps without seeing you through the middle. And that to me is basic training, but I have met lots of folks that are pretty far up in training that haven't taught their dogs. So then they have to be in the middle. And then if their timing isn't impeccable, the dog can't tell where it's going, meaning the front cross is late. And then the peanut gallery will say, why lead out pivots don't work. And those of you that know that I do tons of lead out pivots, I mean, I can bore you with lots of pretty. Okay. All right. Let's move on. And then I can promise you that someday I'm going to do like with lots of video of different lead out pivots and lead out pushes. And then you can say, oh my gosh, I can't stand that, do that ever again. Or you can come and I'll show you the both of them. I just wanted you to show that when I changed my position, it really affected my dog. And I actually saw that second error. Okay, do you guys see a course map?
Yes.
Thanks. So just to stay on our lead out pivot for just a second, I don't know where the time goes. So you guys, this is a classic box configuration. This is one side of the box. This is one side of the box. This is one side of the box. And this is one side of the box. So if this course was 1, 2, 3, I would lead out to here, have my dog on my left, do a front cross in place and at the right time, and then the dog would be on my right. And that would be a maneuver that I could do if it was the middle of the course. If I was coming through here, I could do a front cross and go that way. If my course was 1, 2, 3, or 1, 2, 3, I would lead out to here. If I was to do a lead out pivot, I'd have the dog on my right, turn, the dog would be on my left, and then I could go wherever I wanted. If I was doing a lead out push and the course was 1, 2, 3, I would lead out over here and move across the front. I'd be paralleling the path and I would push the dog to this jump. And if I was doing a lead out push for 1, 2, 3, I would lead out to this side of the box and I would show the dog movement in that direction. That's the other reason I don't like to show movement if I'm going to cue a turn. So I hope that that helps. Like, if you don't know the difference between a lead out pivot and a lead out push, I hope you're if you didn't get it here, I hope you're at least inspired to learn it. But let's talk about this little course here. You'll see me handle it. When I have when the poles are number 2, I don't like to lead out right on the poles because I'm messing with how my dog collects. He's going to be racing up to me and think that I'm trying to help him with his collection. And I don't want to do that. I also don't want to race past. I just want to be polite. So I set my dog nice and straight for that pole entry. I knew that if I blinked or leaned or put my hand up, that my dog might not want to pass this jump. Some people let out on this side because this jump was further. They were afraid to have that jump in the lane. But I stood over here telling the dog, and that's another reason why I wouldn't be over here to do a lead out push, because on another day, this position is going to mean it would never, it wouldn't do that. That would not be the on-course obstacle. And you're going to notice that my fingers are pointing straight down to the ground, because if I had my hand up a little bit, Tux could think I was pointing at that. And that's what I do when I want my dog to pass obstacles. Passing obstacles is a thing. So 2 to 3, you're going to notice that I'm right next to his rib cage. And right when his nose is at 11, I do my motion because I need him to do that. And if I do it here, I could get caught behind that wing. So I travel over here. So that's his path. And I travel because I wanted this worked to take that jump out of play. And then I could travel this far away. And when I make my move, be clear of that wing so that I could perfectly parallel that path. And then here comes a serpentine, out over 4, in over 5, out over 6. And then the course goes 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And this was a little tiny bit scary, 13. And then look how fun that is. So I knew that I wanted to get this line set just perfect out of the tunnel for Tux to go like, I wanted to make that go like that. I didn't want him to take this and then try to do a little turn, because I wanted to run perfectly straight to cue that so that I wouldn't have to run on that side of the poles. I wanted to run like this and then over to here. And you'll see that that's what I do. Let me get another cleaner map. So because I wanted to have the dog on my right for sure when he exited here, that meant I wanted to get my dog on the right as soon as possible. So I want to say, could I have him on my right for 10? Well, I know he's going to be on my left for 8 and 9. So that's a side change. And then I know he's going to be on so now we've got the options, you guys, of which side to handle the serpentine on. Whenever you have a serp, which is again, out, in and out, you could handle from either side. And boy, do the people do all kinds of fun things. And it's so much fun when you've got serps. So one strategy would be to beat the dog. So when the dog is here, you could do a front cross, and then you could just keep the dog on your right, and you could do another side change here, or you could rear cross 9 and, or I'm sorry, rear cross 8. Yep, thank you. And just give the dog a green light, go on, and rear cross 10, which people did. And I'm actually at 10 to 7. When we get into configuration handling, you guys, when we're just talking about a configuration and not a full course, I can teach you, there are many, many options for handling a serpentine on this side or this side. If you make your side changes through the middle, we could do a whole day training on just serpentines. This particular judge, Paula Ratoza, I think is how you say it. She always has serps and very often up and back. But what I did not want to do is be in a foot race with my dog cueing extension on 4 when there was a tunnel here. I knew I didn't want to do that. You guys, when I say I don't want to, notice I didn't say I'm not going to. I might have to. But in order to do that, I would have to peel way off of the poles. So I would have to be here when Tux is here. And I would have to be here before he's here. Otherwise, I am saying go tunnel, go tunnel, go tunnel, go tunnel, and that's an off course. So I decided I wanted to do a pull here, which means I would have to do a serp on 5 and a technical rear cross on 6. Now, those of you that train with me know that we know how to do serps to rears. And there's a sweet spot where you're just past this, but if you keep going too far, when the dog takes 6, if you're up here too far, the dog isn't going to think you want him to come back. They're going to think you want 18 over here. So I want to be ahead of 10 and behind, well, it's 5, I'm sorry. I'm calling it by what I'm seeing here. I want to be past 5 when he takes it, but I want to be as far away from 6 as I can be. Because that's how I cue to turn back to me on a rear, and that's how I cue serp. So there's one little sweet spot, and it's always easy to find. But making yourself travel at a rate of speed that you're in the sweet spot when the dog is right here, and then you just tell him to go left. And then this is just an independent 180. And the amount of fretting, I was so surprised at the amount of fretting that was happening in that section, because you guys, it's a serp and a 180. This is just a front cross. And if your dog knows how to turn away from you and do a 180, which again is back to those classic configurations. If you've got independent 180, if you know how to do a 180, a threadle, a 270, and a serp, and a box and a straight line, you got every course. Yeah, yes, I don't want to say just and scare anybody, but, or offend anybody either, but serp to a rear, 180, front cross, 180, front cross. And then this was the place that I was the most concerned about, that I could have him take this bar just like that. And then all I had to do was let him go. So you want to watch it? Any questions on this? I went to how I handled it, opposed to some people that got over here. They just handled 5 on their right, 6 on their right, and they sent to 6, and they still got these 2 front crosses in. It wasn't if you came on this side that you had to do the rears, like I said, they were able to pull to 6. And then as the dog is coming around here, they've got their arm up. They make it, that's the only farther distance that they have to travel, is from there to there to do this front cross before the dog is here. Now the dog goes, I got it. It's that jump. And the handler is moving here while the dog is doing this. The idea is to be on this side of this path before the dog is here. And you just keep rotating. And it was easy if you moved at the right time, and you'll see on the video, to parallel this path. And I thought about cutting across here, but I didn't want Tux to see any motion in this. I could have easily said go on. The dog loves to go on more than anything in the world. And I could have cut this way, but I would have risked, as he exited, him see me going here, and that would have botched my line. So I went ahead and traveled here. So when he exited, I had all this time to say, this is why, you guys, I preach so much about lanes and lines, and just, I set the line and I stayed in the lane. So he had no doubt that he was going there. Some people got gummed up and they did decel, and then the dog read this as a turn. They either flipped off, or the handler got gummed up here because they didn't have enough. You needed this momentum to buy this jump. So I'm buying this jump as my dog exits the tunnel. Okay, questions? Let's find the video.
And while you're finding the video, you wouldn't do a rear cross between 9 and 10 because you want to stay in your lanes and be ready for 13, 14. Is that right?
Yeah, the rear cross on 10, that's a little bit far. You may have to run around this way and actually rear cross 11. I avoid like the plague. This isn't just a first choice, second choice. It's like, oh, kill me. If I have to run, this is away from my on course. My course goes, I'm always trying to work toward my on course. I hope that helps.
Okay.
I hope that answered your question. Lots of wind that day. So my hand is down and I'm in the lane closest to that, as close to that wing as I can get. We'll watch it at regular speed. I have a bar down here, I think. That was a little bit of a bad turn. Front cross, and I'll go back and slow it. That was a little bit late. But this is where that lane, and then it just go on and I can not mess him up at all. And that might have been a little bit too much decel, but let me go ahead and do it in slow-mo if you don't mind. And I'll tell you everything. You guys know I'm a stickler for how I lead out. I like to take big steps. I'm talking to him. I've got eye contact. But I'm being real careful with that right arm to not put it up. And see how my hand, I'm not pointing at the jump, because this yellow off course, he's set up for the poles. You guys, this is I hear, he shouldn't take that. No, he shouldn't take it. But whenever you're asking a dog to pass something, how often is it to our advantage for our dogs to pass obstacles? How often do they pass obstacles? How often do we want them to pass obstacles? I don't know about you, but I want my dog to take obstacles. When training a border collie, you're working very hard to get them not to run around or pass obstacles. So I'm kind of saying, hey buddy, if it's in your general vicinity, take it and I'll be happy. So I have to have a way to say, by choosing this lane, and I wanted to run as close to that wing as I can, and I'm walking straight, and I'm telling him, go weave, and my hand is down. So I'm saying, don't turn in as many ways, verbally and physically, as I can. I don't leave stuff. We could argue all day about whether I should have to, but the point is I can. In training, I make things more difficult. So my position now, I'm at pole 3. I guess I told you I was at his rib cage. And again, the angle of this is a little bit hard to see, but where I'm at in relationship to my dog's body while he's weaving is always predetermined. So he's at pole 11. Tux has a history of popping out of poles. But it's still my responsibility to handle correctly. I handle my dog, I try to handle as if they're not trained, which sounds a little bit weird, but when he's at 11 is when I'm going to make my move. So he's not, when you're on that side, there's only 11 poles. So I didn't go any further up than I wanted because I want to show a bit of extension, which I get to that jump. And this jump, he takes a little bit wide. So it's a little bit late. We can't tell what I'm saying. And that's why I get this bar down. And that angle was, the courses were fine, but they weren't my favorite. And I'm a little far off the line. If I had been over here a little bit more, this is not my normal SERP position. And it may be because that jump is off-centered there, but I'm a little further away than needed. He hit the stanchion. The bar was up until he landed. So that's the technical rear cross. It's actually a verbal turn away. Dog is on my left. I tell him to go right. I'm sorry, I tell him to go left. He is now on my right. Technically, my right arm goes up to cue the 180. I want to have the front cross done before he gets to the next jump. And I almost get it done, almost. Usually I want to have the line set, meaning my onside foot is finished before they take the jump. Right there's my onside foot. So now the line is set. So in my book, that's late. And now I'm going to cue the 180, not bring my arm back down. And I want to get the next front cross done before he takes a jump. So I've started it. I'm showing good motion, and onside foot is going to make it before he lands. Could it have been earlier? Probably. But I'm happy with that timing. And now I've got a perfect line set to the tunnel. And I'm just telling him, go on, go on, go on. Nothing to jump. We've already dropped it. And then this line was real important to me so I could do all that layering. And like I said, I could have cut across, but I wanted, it's the wingless, you guys, it's hard to see the jump, but you can see when he exits the tunnel, I am in my correct lane. That's the onside foot. And I've got him lined up for a jump that's over here. That was my goal. So he's going to take this bar in that way I showed you on the drawing. And now I can just green light him. I didn't have to worry about him flipping off of me or coming with me to the poles. And you can see I start changing lanes. And you guys, when you set a lane early and you're really green lighting the dog, the dog he knew it was this yellow jump here. So I get to peel away. And I'm getting the extension that I want. And now because I am saying, go on, go on, go on. I call that verbal insistence. For the whole way, I'm not going to stop and say, oh, there's a turn cue coming. And then I got a little further ahead than I thought I was gonna, and I decel a little bit more than I. I was actually worried when they came in this line that he might cut in front of me and take that tunnel. And that was my incentive for being that far ahead. I'm 4 minutes over time. But I'm happy to take questions or comments. Going once.
Okay, I just have one, and please understand everybody that we're complete beginners, but how do you know? It's like my dog, you know, when I'm practicing by myself sometimes, and we have never trialed, you know, sometimes she's really got a lot of spark and she's going really fast, and other times she slows down. So how do you know where to be on course that you're not, you know, sending her the wrong message, decelerating or something like that? So.
Well, I think what you're talking about is how do you prepare a plan for a dog that you don't know how fast they're going to be going?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so you guess, and it's having a dog that runs at all different speeds is a real challenge. But with your little dog, she's going to learn how to do agility at one speed. So, and that's what happens is when we have dogs that experiment, when they ask us, they go, do you care if I go fast all the time? And,
Right.
and each time the dog slows down, what do? We throw a great big party.
Yeah.
So I do more training than cheerleading, because when you cheerlead, don't get me wrong, there's plenty of dogs that we do a bit of cheerleading, but when you rely on cheerleading to shift their mood, what they get to do then is pick and choose. So I do a lot of back chaining to something they love. Like she loves her mark, right? So we'll just teach her that we don't do agility pokey. We do agility one way. And then sometimes it's just fun trying to guess. And when I'm doing my walkthrough, I'm imagining that dog, and I can just sort of feel imaginary. It's imagination. You're imaginating. You're imagining the dog getting on the teeter and how long it takes. And when you it's developing an awareness of yourself and your dog. And then it's when the dog is here, I want to be here. When the dog is here, I want to be there. And it's sort of just fun, and you win some and you lose some. But when you're at the mercy of the dog speed, there's people in here that their dogs sometimes run fast, sometimes run slow. And it is hard to keep, it's quite the challenge. And that's why working really hard to teach them, this isn't something we do slow. This is something we do lots of reinforcement for going faster. And if the dog isn't going at the speed you wanted, you have to adjust your handling on the fly. And it's difficult. It's not impossible. Anybody else? Good question. Going once. Hope to see you next week.